When analyzing whether Jungkook could realistically be considered America's new king of pop, one of the most critical factors to evaluate is his chart performance in the United States. Chart dominance has always been a key measure of cultural authority in the music industry, particularly in the US, where rankings on Billboard and streaming platforms shape not only public perception, but also the direction of the global music market. To assess Jungkook's position, we must look at how his singles, albums, and collaborations have performed across multiple metrics: Billboard Hot 100 placements, Billboard 200 rankings, Spotify streams, Apple Music performance, YouTube metrics, and even radio play, each of which contributes to a comprehensive picture of his influence. The Billboard Hot 100 remains the gold standard in measuring an artist's reach in America. Historically, very few non-English speaking or non-Western acts have been able to dominate this chart for extended periods of time. Jungkook, however, has managed to enter and sustain a presence on the Hot 100 with multiple releases, both solo and collaborative. This level of consistency is significant because it shows that his appeal is not confined to novelty or a single viral moment. Instead, his chart performance points to a growing and sustained demand within the US market. What makes this achievement even more notable is the level of competition he faces. The Hot 100 is saturated with established American artists who benefit from domestic radio support, long-standing label infrastructures, and built-in promotional pipelines. Jungkook's ability to break into this system as a South Korean artist, working partly through international distribution channels, demonstrates not only personal talent, but also a shift in how the American audience consumes music. The fact that his singles have competed with releases from the biggest names in US pop, often securing positions in the top 10, suggests that he is not only being recognized, but also prioritized by American listeners. While singles are crucial, albums provide a more comprehensive measure of an artist's popularity and staying power. In the US, album sales and streams determine placement on the Billboard 200, which tracks the most popular albums each week. Jungkook's solo projects have reached notable positions on this chart, an accomplishment that underscores his ability to transition from being a member of BTS to a standalone artist in one of the most competitive markets in the world. It is worth noting that Jungkook's album achievements are not merely a byproduct of BTS's existing fanbase. Although BTS has certainly provided him with a foundation, the numbers reflect engagement beyond core fandom. Album tracks have generated significant streaming volumes independent of single promotions, which indicates organic interest from listeners outside the dedicated ARMY community. For comparison, even major American soloists sometimes struggle to maintain album chart longevity beyond their lead singles. Jungkook's ability to retain attention across an entire project reflects a level of respect for him as a complete artist rather than just a performer of a few popular songs. Perhaps the most telling metric of Jungkook's dominance in the US comes from streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music. These platforms provide real-time data on listener preferences and are less influenced by traditional promotional structures, which makes them more democratic indicators of popularity. Jungkook has consistently ranked at the top of global and US-specific Spotify charts, at times surpassing American artists who are considered staples of the industry. His success on Spotify is particularly important because it reflects not only initial hype, but also sustained listening behavior. High debut numbers can often result from coordinated fan campaigns, but long-term playlist placement and repeat streams require broader public engagement. Jungkook's inclusion in mainstream playlists, such as today's top hits and his strong positioning on US daily charts confirm that casual listeners are also engaging with his music, not just his core fan base. Apple Music data further reinforces this narrative. While Spotify dominates globally, Apple Music maintains a strong market share in the US, particularly among listeners who are more deeply engaged with music culture. Jungkook's ability to place high on Apple Music charts demonstrates crossover appeal to these listeners, many of whom drive music discourse online and influence wider public taste. Although YouTube's role in determining American chart dominance has shifted due to adjustments in Billboard's methodology, it still remains a vital platform for gauging visibility and cultural impact. Jungkook's music videos and performance videos often rack up tens of millions of views within hours of release. More importantly, his content maintains strong US-based engagement. Geographic breakdowns of YouTube traffic show that American viewers are a substantial portion of his overall audience, which further strengthens his claim to relevance in the market. Additionally, the visual component of his artistry, whether through high-production music videos or live performance clips, creates an additional dimension of influence. Pop has historically been defined not only by sound, but also by visual storytelling, and Jungkook's ability to dominate both areas puts him in line with the legacies of past American pop icons. Radio airplay is one of the most challenging barriers for international artists in the US music industry. American radio has traditionally been resistant to non-English songs and artists without domestic label prioritization. However, Jungkook has managed to secure measurable airplay for his English-language singles, something that many global stars struggle to achieve. While his radio presence is not yet on par with long-established US pop stars, the fact that he has been able to break into this market at all suggests growing acceptance from industry gatekeepers. Radio exposure also has a multiplying effect. It introduces casual listeners who may not be actively searching for Jungkook's music, expanding his reach beyond streaming platforms and fan-driven promotion. To evaluate whether Jungkook can be seen as the new king of pop in America, we must compare his achievements with those of past and present American icons. Artists such as Michael Jackson, Justin Timberlake, and Justin Bieber each built their dominance through a combination of chart-topping singles, strong album performances, radio saturation, and mass cultural visibility. Jungkook's chart trajectory is reminiscent of this pattern, though with unique differences shaped by the streaming era. Unlike earlier pop stars who relied heavily on radio and television, Jungkook has leveraged digital platforms to establish dominance. His ability to outperform American artists on platforms like Spotify reflects a structural change in how pop dominance is measured. While he may not yet have the decades-long track record of someone like Michael Jackson, the pace at which Jungkook is breaking barriers is arguably faster than many of his American predecessors. The larger implication of Jungkook's chart performance is the shifting definition of American pop itself. For decades, the genre was dominated by US-based artists, with very few international figures breaking into mainstream recognition. Jungkook's success disrupts this narrative. He demonstrates that American pop culture is no longer an isolated entity, but part of a globalized system where talent from outside the US can legitimately compete for the highest positions. This shift is further reinforced by younger audiences who consume music primarily through digital platforms without regard for national borders. For them, Jungkook is not seen as an outsider, but as a central figure within pop music. His chart dominance, therefore, is not only about numbers, but also about cultural acceptance in a market that has historically been difficult for non-American artists to penetrate. One question often raised in discussions about Jungkook's rise is whether his chart dominance is sustainable over the long term. Critics may argue that early success can be attributed to the momentum of BTS's global influence. However, data from multiple chart cycles indicates that Jungkook is building an identity separate from BTS while maintaining commercial success. His ability to generate consistent numbers across different releases suggests that his dominance is not a temporary spike, but a developing career trajectory. Moreover, the infrastructure around Jungkook, ranging from label partnerships to promotional strategies, has increasingly been tailored to the US market. This indicates long-term investment, which will likely reinforce his sustainability. Unlike viral artists who fade after one hit, Jungkook has already proven he can maintain audience interest through multiple projects. While chart success provides measurable proof of musical dominance, the question of whether Jungkook is America's new king of pop cannot be answered without addressing his broader cultural and branding impact. Pop music has never been solely about music. It has always existed at the intersection of sound, image, fashion, endorsement, and cultural influence. From Michael Jackson's iconic Glove to Britney Spears' Pepsi campaigns and Justin Bieber's role as a youth trendsetter, the so-called King of Pop is as much a cultural symbol as a musical force. In Jungkook's case, his branding and cultural penetration in the US suggest that he is moving decisively into this territory. In the American entertainment ecosystem, pop icons are defined as much by their image as by their discography. They embody an aesthetic, a lifestyle, and a set of values that resonate with audiences beyond music. Jungkook's rise has followed a similar trajectory. His carefully cultivated visual identity, clean yet edgy, youthful yet mature, has been reinforced by fashion campaigns, live performances, and media appearances. Unlike many international artists who struggle to adapt their image for American markets, Jungkook has seamlessly blended global appeal with local resonance. His collaborations with Calvin Klein, for example, have positioned him as both a fashion leader and a cultural figure in the US. This matters because fashion partnerships often function as an entry point for artists into American mainstream visibility. Just as Madonna leveraged her relationship with designers in the 1980s and Lady Gaga did in the 2010s, Jungkook's Calvin Klein campaigns have made him recognizable beyond the sphere of K-pop. Jungkook's partnership with Calvin Klein deserves particular attention because of its timing and impact. The US fashion industry is deeply intertwined with the music industry, and Calvin Klein has a history of selecting ambassadors who embody cultural shifts. By making Jungkook the face of their campaigns, the brand signaled recognition of his global influence. In practical terms, the campaign's success in the US was measurable. Sales associated with Jungkook's Calvin Klein collections reportedly spiked, with some items selling out shortly after being featured. Beyond sales, the campaign generated sustained conversation in American media outlets, fashion blogs, and social platforms. This visibility positioned Jungkook not only as a music artist, but also as a trendsetter in American pop culture. Importantly, it also provided him with exposure to demographics that might not have engaged with him through music alone, such as fashion enthusiasts and lifestyle consumers. In today's digital culture, social media plays a central role in shaping an artist's identity. Jungkook consistently trends on American Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, often with metrics that surpass those of US pop stars. This matters because social media buzz functions as both a reflection and a driver of cultural relevance. For example, when Jungkook releases a new single or makes a public appearance, hashtags associated with him often dominate Twitter's trending lists in the United States. On TikTok, his music is widely used in fan-created content, brand campaigns, and viral trends. This level of digital presence parallels the way Justin Bieber leveraged YouTube during his early years to establish dominance. In Jungkook's case, the platforms may have changed, but the outcome is similar. He is embedded in the daily media consumption of American youth. What separates a pop star from a cultural icon is their ability to transcend the boundaries of music and enter multiple industries. Jungkook has begun to do exactly this. His endorsement deals and collaborations extend beyond Calvin Klein, encompassing partnerships that highlight his influence in lifestyle and luxury markets. In the US, brands increasingly seek artists who bring not only visibility, but also authenticity. Jungkook's appeal lies in his ability to balance accessibility with aspirational value. He is approachable enough to connect with young consumers, but polished enough to represent high-end brands. This duality mirrors the strategies used by American pop royalty, who historically have secured long-term influence by aligning themselves with both mass-market and luxury products. Cultural penetration also requires validation from mainstream American media. Jungkook's solo career has received significant coverage in outlets such as Billboard, Rolling Stone, Variety, and Forbes. These publications do not merely report his achievements, but increasingly frame him as a key player in shaping the future of global pop. For context, consider how American media historically positioned artists like Michael Jackson, Madonna, and Beyoncé, not simply as musicians, but as cultural forces whose work symbolized broader trends. Jungkook is being framed in similar terms. Articles about him often emphasize his role in globalizing pop music, highlighting his ability to bring non-American perspectives into the US mainstream. This type of media framing is a hallmark of pop royalty. Another dimension of Jungkook's branding in the US lies in the organic work done by fans. His fan base, particularly in America, functions as a decentralized marketing engine that amplifies his cultural presence. Whether through viral fan edits on TikTok, organized streaming campaigns, or coordinated physical advertisements in American cities, fans help ensure that Jungkook remains a visible figure in the US cultural landscape. Unlike traditional marketing campaigns, which often fade after a short period, fan-driven visibility has staying power. It ensures that Jungkook's image and name circulate in everyday spaces, on social media feeds, in playlists, and even in physical urban environments. This kind of grassroots branding is difficult to replicate and is one of the strongest indicators of long-term cultural penetration. To evaluate Jungkook's branding in the US, it is useful to compare his trajectory with that of American pop stars who achieved cultural dominance. For instance, Justin Timberlake expanded beyond music into acting, while Lady Gaga built influence through fashion and performance art. Jungkook's path appears to integrate aspects of both. He has not pursued acting in Hollywood, but has solidified a fashion identity comparable to Gaga's early dominance, while also maintaining broad-based pop appeal similar to Timberlake's. The key similarity lies in diversification. American pop stars who earned the title of pop royalty never relied solely on music. They created cultural ecosystems around their persona. Jungkook is replicating this strategy with endorsements, fashion campaigns, and fan-driven visibility, ensuring that his name remains central in American cultural conversation. Another important factor to consider is how receptive the American market has been to Jungkook's branding efforts. Unlike some international artists who remain confined to niche audiences, Jungkook has broken through into mainstream consumer consciousness. His campaigns are featured in high-profile spaces like New York billboards, American fashion magazines, and nationwide advertisements. This level of exposure suggests institutional recognition. American brands and media companies see value in aligning themselves with Jungkook. For an artist to be considered king of pop in America, they must embody not only talent but also marketability, and Jungkook is demonstrating both. Pop royalty is not merely about commercial success, it is about symbolism. Michael Jackson, for instance, symbolized innovation in dance and music videos. Beyoncé symbolizes empowerment and cultural representation. Jungkook's emerging symbolism in the US centers on globalization and the breaking down of cultural barriers. He represents a generation of artists who are not confined by geography, language, or traditional industry structures. This symbolism resonates strongly with younger American audiences who see themselves as part of a global culture rather than a strictly national one. For them, Jungkook is not an outsider invading American pop. He is a natural leader of a music culture that is increasingly borderless. In this sense, his branding aligns with the values of the next generation of American pop consumers. The question remains: can Jungkook sustain this cultural penetration long enough to be considered America's king of pop? Evidence suggests that he can. His branding efforts are not one-off campaigns, but part of a consistent strategy. Each new project, whether a music release, a fashion collaboration, or a public appearance, adds to his cultural capital. Moreover, his appeal spans demographics. Teenagers who dominate TikTok, young adults who drive fashion trends, and even older audiences who engage with traditional media. This broad base of appeal provides stability, reducing the risk of fading relevance. If he continues on this trajectory, his cultural penetration in the US could rival that of long-established American icons.